All right, so could you repeat the lecture? Could you repeat the first question?
Sure. The first question was, why do you think prosperity, both in ancient Israel and in modern South Korea, often leads people to forget God, even when they've experienced His grace and provision?
Probably because we prioritize earthly matters over spiritual matters. Perhaps that's the reason. God gives us blessings uh, so that we may believe in His promise of leading us to heaven. You know, and so earthly blessings are not the main purpose of our faith. It is They are complementary, and God gives both blessings and curses to motivate our obedience. However, we human beings are so fragile and weak, so while living in prosperity and abundant blessings, we may love earthly things more than what awaits us after death. So our focus is brought down to the earth instead of looking to heaven. So I think that's probably the reason why we humans tend to forget the Lord while living in prosperity.
I think you made a really insightful point there. It's so easy for us to get comfortable and focus on what's right in front of us rather than keeping our eyes on eternal things. So, what do you think are some ways that we can stay mindful of God even when life is going really well?
So like I said, we should not bring our focus down to this earthly matter. We always look forward to entering heaven and prioritize our spiritual well-being over our physical being.
Absolutely. Keeping that eternal perspective in mind definitely helps us stay grounded. It's all about maintaining that focus on what truly matters and not letting the comforts of life distract us, right?
That's right. So make another question, please.
Sure. So, given everything we've discussed, how do you think we can balance the idea of God's grace and the necessity of obedience in our spiritual lives?
I mean, obeying the word of God itself is the grace of God. And as Romans chapter 6 says, we were once slaves to sin, but now we believe in Jesus Christ and were cleansed through his blood. We have transformed into the servant of righteousness, and we are bound by the word of God. As the servant of righteousness, we becomes our responsibility to obey the word of God, and God has given us the strength to live by his word. So obeying the word of God itself is God's grace. And how else would we be able to obey his word? We were once sinners, and now now that we are the servants of Christ, servants of righteousness, we have been enabled, we have been empowered to live in obedience to his word. And all we have to do is to preserve this strength given to us.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's definitely a cycle of grace that enables our obedience, and that obedience then reflects our gratitude for that grace. It's really about leaning on the strength that God gives us and continuing to grow in that relationship.
Right. So, any other question?
Sure. Here's another question for you. How do you think we can help others around us, whether friends or family, to also stay focused on God and not get distracted by the world?
I don't think that's related to the passage. So, can you make a question that is specifically connected to passage I provided?
Of course. Based on the passage you shared, how do you see the connection between the Israelites' journey through the wilderness and Paul's analogy of running the race towards heaven?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, just as the Israelites, the majority of the Israelites faced their demise in the heaven, uh, we, the we believers, only a few of us can enter heaven. That's a perfect analogy. And Paul used the analogy of a race to illustrate this truth. Even though many runners compete against each other in the race, only a single person wins the prize. In the same way, there are many believers in the world that are running toward heaven. However, the Bible, sadly and unfortunately, the Bible states that only a few will enter heaven. And this is the tragic and sad truth that we must confront, because remembering this truth helps us stay connected to the Word of God, and instills us with a sense of reverent fear of being disqualified from entering heaven.
You explained that really well. It's definitely a sobering reminder, and it helps us understand why Paul emphasizes perseverance and staying vigilant in our faith. It definitely puts things in perspective and encourages us to keep running that race with endurance.
Yes. All right. So, thank you for having a good conversation. I think we discussed enough about, we discussed the passage enough. And see you next time.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed our conversation too. If you ever want to chat more or discuss another passage, just let me know.